Hey everybody, welcome back. It is I, DrBossKey, and today we're going to walk you through some basics for how to create enemy death sprites. So when you destroy an enemy, it's what's left behind, the image for that. And you can also be a particle system as well. So we had a really cool request from the community by Angel, who was asking how we want to do it. And basically what he wants to do is he wants to leave scorch marks behind after destroying the enemy. So I thought I would walk you through that. All right, so just real quick, we have the DrBossKey here. So that's this bad boy here. And you notice when I kill it, it switches to essentially this destroyed, broken state. Particles are still, for the blood, temporary, but we're working on it. Full disclosure too, if you're using the version of the 1.2.24 Shmup creator, this has a bug in it right now where the death sprites themselves don't have the right order in the environment. So you can see I'm flying behind it. Sunny's already fixed that. It'll be in the next version, probably released next week or two. So just don't freak out if you decide to use this and then you have that bug. So we're already on it. So, all right, how did we do this? So first, let's go over to Photoshop. So we have basically, this is our enemy sprite sheet here, right? So this is a 1K by 1K, 1024 by 1024. And we also have, we have a death state, right? And the important thing about the death state is for me, in my particular use case, I wanted to make sure that the enemy wasn't too oversized, and that basically, and I think it's actually a tiny bit bigger. I scaled it down an inch. But basically, if it's like a poor man's texture swap, right? So when the thing explodes, you have a big explosion, and then it switches to this sprite graphic. That's its own separate image. So that's all you need to know. The main takeaway here, right, is that however you set it, if you're setting up like a tank, then you want to make sure if you want to do scorch marks, you want to make sure then your scorch marks for like the tank would be then only either the blown out part of the tank if you want, or just the rubble, or whatever the what's left behind after the explosion. It's just creative for you. But the key here is that you're switching between these images. All right, so I'll close Photoshop. That just is making sure that you know where that's at. So a couple things, we don't need video. So one is you have your normal enemy sprite in the enemy sprite folder. And then in order to create the texture we're going to switch to with enemy states, you want to go to your particles folder and you want to put in whatever your enemy death state will look like. So you can see I've got a couple here with my Hellmaster death and the Avian Dark Mage. So they're in two different locations. Okay. So then we go into Shmup Creator, click on your enemy, and you'll notice here, basically over here under gameplay, you have a death scenario, right? So you have a death, not a scenario. You have a death. What am I trying to say? You have an area for hooking up death animations. So it's segmented in the UI. Okay, so and then you can see here under death and explosion, you have access to essentially all of these explosions. So, and there's a little bit. This isn't a full tutorial on the explosion editor, nor the particle editor. So you have to have some familiarity. Don't worry, it just takes time to work with these things. There's plenty you can do. And again, you don't have to do any code. So it's a little bit fiddly and you got to practice if you get stuck, that's what the community is for. Just ask questions. So in the explosion editor, so you open that up and you've got it right here, right? And there's a particle editor as well. So, and you can do it. There's a couple ways you can set it up, but for instance, right? Let's just start with the explosion editor. So in the explosion editor, we created a new explosion. So I wound up calling it the DrBossKey Death. That's what our enemy is here. And then here you'll notice that you can create a new sprite element, which is just the image. You can create a new particle system element. So in particles are from the particle editor, right? So you can see like here I have the blood blobs. I think it was blood spatter. I don't know, it's one of these. Yeah, that's the one. So temporary for me, but just so you kind of know how these things are linked together. I'll do some more tutorials on these in a bit. So, and then let's see. So you have the particle, and then you have a light element. So if you have images in the background, not the background parallax scrolling images, but that allows you to have a light because the engine's a 3D engine, and then I can essentially light produce light for on those background sprites. So what we did, the other thing that's important is that it's it's stack ordered. So I believe, and the thing is here is that we're using a big it's like, I think it's 512 by 512, so it's a big sprite. Doesn't show completely in the editor, but over here you can hit the replay button, so you can kind of tweak and tune your elements there. You can turn off the visibility, so you can just see the explosion bits and the particle elements one by one. So that just kind of helps give you the ability to dial into the specific ones. And then the important thing here is that I believe the bottom is closest to the camera and the top is furthest away. So this is how your elements stack on top of each other. So in our case, because we have a big image, we want to make sure that the particle elements for the blood and the explosion bits are on top of the sprite element, which is this guy here. You can see it here, which is just the dead DrBossKey sprite sheet. Okay, I know that's quite a bit, but that's what you have here. So in the in each of these here, basically what we do is we're looking in the particle folder, right? And we have the DrBossKey dead sprite, and then we hook that up, and that's super easy, right? So you just add it as a sprite element and you hook to it. If you can have these can be animated if you want, normal sprite sheets. So you put in your column rows like before, just like if you're animating anything else. You can set your time for when it starts. So the time before it actually starts, you can set for how long it's going to last on screen. You can tweak scale. That's where I think I'm scaling it down a little bit. And you can change the position of where the sprite appears. So you can put them, and you can see we have these arrow indicators. So as you move the positioning around, you can see the arrow. These are arrow indicators to indicate where the elements are going to show up. So there's a lot of tweak and move things and change things, right? So. But yeah, so you get a sense for it there. So, and the cool thing is you can stay in this window. You can tweak these elements. So we could change, for instance, blood spatter to, I don't know, bonus ship, right? So just something silly, right? And then you can start and then kill your guy, and you can see there's a bonus ship element, right? So it is really that simple. And it's a lot of fun. So you got a quick iteration loop, so don't sweat it too much there. Okay. So that's the sprite element. All right, so then let me see here. So we have the particle elements, and then on the DrBossKey, yeah, so that's pretty much it. Like at the most base level, that is how you would wire together a death animation, right? So you use the as a just quick recap, you come into your explosion editor, right? You create a new explosion, you add your sprite elements and your particle effects through here, you stack them. And then you essentially locate the assets that you put into the particle folder for that enemy death sprite. And then, you get to basically hook up all these really cool things. You can actually add sounds and you can add the pitch. So there's really a lot of cool stuff you can do. So that is a way of doing it. I think that's probably the simpler way. There's another way that I've done it as well. I don't know if I really should walk you guys through that because it's a little bit more tricky. Oh, hey, why not? Okay, so let me just do it. So that is a way. So the other way you can do this. So we have the Trent demon here, right? So same thing. The Trent demon has a Trent demon dead state, and when we kill it, you can see that it swaps to dead state. And in this case, you'll also notice that it's pretty cool, in that normally we switch the sprite state to the dead state. We trigger some particles, but we also took advantage of the animated roots, and so you can see here that they have a few more frames of animation that slow down, so it's like just where it's dying, right? Super fun. And you can see here again that there's a big explosion. There's like these demon ghost things that fly out of the tree when it dies. So let's take a look at that. All right, so again, to your death animation state. So in this case, this is the more advanced version, right? So, but still, you still need the same thing. So you create still a new explosion. You go to the Trent demon, or you create the new explosion. I named it Trent demon dead state. And here you can see I have a lot more going on. But at the most base level, I have the trunk. right? And then I have the roots that are dead, which you can't really see here, but you saw it in the main bits there, right? I have smoke rising. I have roots animated. I have the skull fire. These are the skulls that fly out of it as well. I have the fire particles, and again, part of what I'm showing you in the editor, I'm using really large sprites. Because I basically want. Let me click out of here. So my video resolution is 19. It's technically bigger in this case, but I'm looking at a 1920 by 1080 frame, right? And the thing is that the sprite, so the sprite that I'm using, this is a really big creature. So if I basically had the sprite smaller, and then I scale it up in the engine to create all the screen space, I get a lot more artifacting because they're scaling, right? So let me just flip over real quick into the engine. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we'll go over into the Reveal Explorer, and we'll go to the model sprites. Sprites, yep. So enemies. So tree. Let me see here. All right, cool. And double check that this is right. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So I'll open this bad boy up here and show you kind of what we're talking about. So here we have 8 frames of animation, and the overall sprite sheet, it's a 2K 2048 by 1024. This is huge, costs a lot of video memory, but this thing is a big thing on screen. So, and I'm purposely not putting a ton of these things in the world. So you need to be smart about how much rendering costs for you in terms of, and this is much more advanced, so we won't go too far down that. But you need to be aware, like, you don't want to have 30 of these on screen at the same time, because you have a lot of alpha overdraw, which is basically where you have transparency, and that it gets more expensive to render, right? And it also costs you more video memory too. Okay, anyways, I digress. But the point being is that these, basically one of these is, I don't know, it's roughly speaking, let me see here. Come on, something like that. Let's take a look. Yeah, so it looks like, yeah, so one frame is about 512 by 512. So, okay, I digress. So, but you can see here, so we have that guy there, and the tree is broken into different pieces. We can do more. If people want to have more like deep dives on how I set up the enemies, let me know and I'll make some of these for you. I've been meaning to, but time is at a premium. So we go back into, over to the assets folder for your game directory, and in particles, let's see here, what did I put? Yeah, so in particles, I basically have, let's see, there's a previous version. Yeah, so, and you can see here, basically it's a 1K by 1K, so 1024 by 1024. And this is what we switched to, just like we showed with the other example. And then just to give you also, then we have the dead roots, right? So, and here we have frames of animation. So the sheet itself is 2048 by 1024 because it's 8 frames. We really want to have that nice undulation and have the burning swap bits. So, okay, now the same setup, so you guys are aware of that. So we go back over here. Okay, so you create that bit. So the thing that we did differently here is that if you go into the particle system, so on the particle system, this is the other trick you can use. I think that you don't necessarily have to do it this way. You can, but I want you to see that it's there because it does give you a little bit more variety in the way that you might want to create a single particle system. So, so let's see. So I have the Treant Demon dead. Let's see which is the best one to show. Yeah, okay, we'll show this one. And so what we've done is, so in the particle system itself, we created a new particle called Treant Demon Roots Dead Animation. And in here, we set the settings to max particles 1, local space, because we want it to stay in local space as opposed to screen space when it's triggered. We set the emission to burst. We only really want to see one of these, not multiples, right? And so we set the repeat and delay to 0. Emission count is 1. In this case, you don't want the particle, which is basically just the image, to fly around or do anything. Maybe you do, but in my case, I didn't. I want it to be static. I don't want the animation to be in just the roots themselves, right? So basically the frame animation. So 0 for emission direction. It doesn't get any velocity. And then in the particle itself, it links to the texture sheet that I showed you. We set the columns and rows correctly. The animation I set to a duration. You can also set it to, which is the particle life. So it would go through each frame on your sprite sheet before it's killed. In my case, I wanted to have the duration to be longer. So then it basically stays on screen. And then as the player flies past, or as the camera flies past, then it goes out of screen. In this case, we set the geometry origin to top center. And that basically just, if you think about the square of your sheet, you have center, top left, top right, bottom center, bottom right, bottom left. And sometimes you need, depending on the size of your sprite, you might need to have where it starts to display that sprite from in either of those directions. So it gives you basically a little bit more room to fudge the values with. In my case, I needed to set it to top center, so I had the roots closer to the bottom of the screen where they draw on death animation. So size, I scaled this in the particle itself, and then I set the life min and max to be the same, so 8 seconds in this case. And then on the modifiers, I didn't want to change the scale, but you could. Gives you the ability. Again, you don't have to worry too much about breaking things here. It's just all about everything. It's all about just creatively exploring what you can do and then staying with it until you can kind of get what you have in your mind into the desired result. So in this case, color over lifetime, you want to come in here and you want to change this because by default, it goes from, I think, gray to dark blue. So you just come into here. I set it to white, so it means that it's not going to pick up any tint on the sprite itself. And then the alpha in this case is 255, which basically means it's fully opaque and not transparent. And then we don't need to change, in our case, the color over time. So nothing for rotation, nothing on force, nothing on animation. And then in my case, I set the 2D effect, which forces the particle to stay in a plane for a flat effect. So if you are dealing with 3D objects or pseudo 3D, maybe you don't want that. So, but that we checked in our other case. So once you've set up your particle this way, you go into your explosion editor and you can see here, root's dead. So all I did is you find the demon root dead, which I just walked you through, and then I added it as an element to basically the death animation, right? And then all the other parameters basically take effect here. I kind of played with scale value and a few other things, but yeah, so that's the gist of it. I know it's quite a bit, but again, so I think Social Kid, what you probably want to do is you want to get your sprite, and then you want to do basically the same size sprite, and then do a destroyed state for your tank. Then you trigger your particle system along with a sprite element, and then you fudge your values to leave it on screen for as long as you need to, or until it goes off screen. So, okay, I think that's it. I hope that was helpful. Thank you, everybody that's out there, for the questions, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.